Now we are.
Now we are.
Yep.
Okay, today's February 15th, 2014. And I'm here giving a little flag class lesson. So about silk, I'm going to go through this specifically for Amy, but should you be watching this, I think everything will be pretty true to still at this point, because not a lot's changed since I started working with silk, other than I've learned more from working with silk. So, first off, where does silk come from?
Silkworms.
Silkworms, good. And, well, this is an important thing because a lot of people don't realize the difference between silkworms and what's the other fabric that we're used to working with. There's a couple of them. Silk has qualities that are similar chemically to nylon, but often people ask about shirts. Can I tie-dye my shirt? And the silk is different from cotton in that silk comes from animals. It is an animal protein, and cotton comes from vegetables, and that's a vegetable protein. So if you just think about an onion, you can slice an onion and hold it up to the sun, and you can kind of see the cellular structure. The cells are big, they're easily permeable with water, and if you think about protein, you don't really see our cells. They're much smaller, they're tighter, they're a lot more complex. And so working with silk is a different beast, literally, than working with vegetable protein. So silk comes from worms. Silkworms, they eat the mulberry bush. So let's go back to the prime stuff. So we're basically eating recycled mulberry bush. The silkworms are hybridized in Brazil, from my knowledge, and the worms that create the silk that we use, if they were to grow up, they would not be able to fly after they cocooned. They're kind of an anomaly. They're hybridized just to make silk. Kind of like at Thanksgiving here in the United States, we have the big turkeys that have big breasts that really can't walk there, and we eat them all the time. These silkworms have been designed just to produce a lot of silk, and if they were to come out of their cocoon, they wouldn't be able to fly. So oftentimes, so they hook them up on industrial machines that pull the silk, and when they're done, they die. And so it's a little cruel process, but we have a lot of things in our society like that. I'm just putting it out there where silk comes from, and they weave it into this wonderful fabric that we are using. They weave it into a fabric. Most of the silk that we are using is from China, though other countries are producing silk now. China has been subsidizing their silk. Often people, they don't equate that to, like, in the United States we subsidize corn. So corn is cheap for people to use. It's a cheap ingredient. China silk has gone up. It's doubled, if not tripled, since I've started using it, because they've stopped subsidizing it. So that means that other countries that don't have the subsidies might actually be producing silk that we use, but at this point it's still pretty much they've got the only game. There are Thai silks and different things like that, but it's a different type of silk. When you think of Thai silk, this nice weave that we use is from China. This particular one that I like is called Habatai, and it's an 8-mummy Habatai. There are different mummies, and the way that I usually point this out is it's abbreviated MM, like millimeter, but it's spelled MOMMY. So if you wonder how you can get mummy out of mommy, you have to think of how the British would say mother or mom, because it's mommy. They would say mummy, not mommy. We would say mommy, but they would say mummy. So this is a 3-mummy. And the 3-mummy you can see through, it's very sheer. So 3 being smaller than 8, being smaller than other numbers, these go up to 16 and 24 mummy. I like 8. You can use 5 mummy, 8 mummy, and 10 mummy. When you get more than 10 mummy, it's really the fabric starts getting to be as heavy as a bed sheet. and it's too heavy to use. 5 is a little light. 10 I think is a little heavy. I've often said if there was a 7 it would be perfect, yeah. So the silk comes off the bolt, and on the sides of any fabric, running down the sides, you have something called the self edge, and that's also on your kaleems and rugs. They have that end. They end it somehow, and so the fabric, when you have it off the selvage, does not fray. It is simply just there. And this part, if you cut it with scissors, it would fray. But the wonderful thing about silk is, so this is 36 inches on me. Oftentimes people do it to their nose, but for me it's right there. So I'm measuring 2 yards of silk. Then I give it about an extra inch, 2, and I cut the self edge. So if you hold this up, just the very corner right here, you would see has a little different. It's about 2 millimeters long. We cut it, and then holding either side, just pull it all the way down. And then we're following a natural line in the fabric. So this part doesn't fray. So when you're using other fabrics like lame or cottons and what have you, you actually have to cut it, and when you cut it, it forms an uneven edge, and the uneven edge is what frays. So now I made 2 yards, and if we fold this in half, we'll have 1 flag on one side and 1 flag on the other. You fold it in half so that the selvages are lined up, and that gives you a 36-inch wide flag. You wouldn't fold it the other way around, like this. Well, you might want to fold it like that, but I don't recommend you to, because that would give you a weird design and the flag would be really long. Yeah. So again, it's a 45-inch fabric, and right now this is 72, and I'm folding it in half, which makes 36 by 45. 2 of them equal. They're going to mirror when we work with them. So silk has been around for thousands of years. In Roman times, it was worth its weight in gold, because all they had back then was something that was similar to a burlap. And imagine how hot it was and how uncomfortable that would be.
But this fine weave that we have today, that's probably not what they had then, right? Because they didn't have the machinery technology, or
Right. And actually, you just reminded me, Amy. Thank you. The habitai is made to line clothes. So if you have a nice expensive suit jacket or an expensive dress, oftentimes on the inside it will be silk. So silk does a couple of things. First off, it doesn't suck moisture out of the skin, so that's why you have people with silk pillows. But it also is very luxurious feeling. So this is the type of material that would be used for the lining of pants, jackets, dresses, mink coats, that type of thing. It would be a luxury product for that type of use. So we're going to iron our silk. So this silk has been whitewashed. I took all of the silk off the bolt and I put it in a wash machine with something called whitewash, which is from a company called RIT. Let me see if I have a box. I don't have it right here. I give up. So
did you say this is some problem with getting it or something like that?
So RIT is a chemical that has phosphates in it. At one point, the phosphates were in everything that we use commercially, and they cause something called algae bloom. Oh, yeah, that's what I'm looking for. So when they were in everything from all temperature to the dish wash machine detergents because they'd help clean. They were something that would go in and help the soap do its job, rinse, clean, and whiten at the same time. So your laundry detergents that say will whiten, oftentimes that's because of something called phosphates that are in there. Well, they pulled the phosphates out of commercial use, and they kind of overdid it. They pulled them off the shelves for anybody's use, and they are now back into stores. You can buy them probably at a fabric store. The thing is we don't want to dump millions of gallons of it down into our lakes and streams because they cause algae bloom, which algae bloom sucks the air out of the water, and the fish can't breathe. So that's not a good thing. It kills our rivers and streams. But the small amount of it that we're using is not going to cause huge amounts of algae bloom. And it is very strong. I usually use a half a box for the 50 yards of silk that I wash. So one box leads me through 2 bolts of fabric.
So your iron, is it set to silk?
It's set to hot, the hottest as I can get, yes.
Okay.
And so we pulled all the silk off out of the roll. We put it in the washing machine. We washed it with just a little bit of soap and half a box of RIT. And then we pulled it out and I put it back on the cardboard there, the roll, so that way I could use it, which is the reason that it's all wrinkly. Most of the time when you buy fabric, it is not wrinkly. And the reason that you want to wash it, there's 2 reasons you want to wash it. One is to put the whitener in it, the phosphates, that will make it glow in the dark more. But the other reason you would like to, or that you want to wash it, is because any fabric, when it comes off the bolt, this is also the reason you want to wash your new clothes, has something on it called sizing. And sizing is a chemical that is similar to starch. And imagine if you have like a nice starched shirt or blouse or whatever, and you spill a little bit of water on there, what happens? The water kind of beads. It doesn't go into the fabric evenly. So we definitely don't want that because we're going to be forcing dye in here, which is, yeah, we want it to take the dye, not to repel it. The other reason we like to wash that off is because sizing also has a bug repellent in it. The bug repellent is to keep little critters from eating it while it's in travel. Yeah, so we want to wash that off. So now we've ironed our fabric, again one side then the other, and then from here we're going to show 3 ties. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I speak up until this point. Let's see. We talked about the RIT. We talked about the whitewash. We know where the silk moths. Yeah, well, I think that's it. So I'm suggesting that maybe we stop the camera